For months, she treated his driveway like her personal parking space, until he had it towed, twice. What followed was a spectacle so dramatic, the entire neighborhood took notice. Reginald Reggie Carter was known for his patience. It came with the job, teaching science to restless middle schoolers in Lakeland, Florida. His days were filled with trying to make the periodic table more interesting than their smartphones. He lived by routine. Structure brought him peace. His home was his refuge. A simple, well-kept brick house, one story, with a manicured lawn and a driveway just big enough for his own vehicle and the occasional guest. It wasn't flashy, but it was his safe haven. A place to kick back, grade assignments, and enjoy a game in solitude. Then Blythe Vanderholt decided his driveway was up for grabs. At first, it seemed harmless. The first time Reggie spotted her silver Lexus RX parked in his space, he assumed it was a mix-up. Maybe she had company over and needed to move some cars around. He let it slide, but then it happened again. And again, in the beginning, Blythe always had an excuse. She was only going inside for a moment, just dropping something off. She'd offer a tight smile, wave him off with her perfectly manicured fingers, as if that explanation should suffice. Reggie wasn't fond of it, but he wasn't the confrontational type. He avoided drama, until the day he pulled into his street, exhausted from work, stomach growling, craving his couch, only to find her Lexus smack in the middle of his driveway. Again, no sign of her anywhere. Reggie inhaled slowly, then exhaled through his nose. He walked to Blythe's door and knocked. She opened it with a look that said she already knew why he was there. "Reggie, what's the matter?" she asked, pretending to be surprised, her voice laced with patronizing sweetness. He gestured toward the driveway. "Your car is blocking my spot again." Blythe blinked, like she hadn't considered that it might be a problem. "Oh, I was just... well, the delivery guy needed space to back up, you know." She smiled as if that explained everything. That excuse should have ended it. "You don't mind, do you?" "I actually do," Reggie replied, keeping his tone even. "I need you to stop using my driveway." Blythe let out an exaggerated sigh. "Reggie, I live right next door. It's not like I'm using some stranger's property." "No, you're parking on mine," he said plainly. She scoffed and rolled her eyes. "Are you seriously upset about a car sitting there for a few minutes?" "It's not just a few minutes," Reggie said, folding his arms. "It's constant, and I wanted to stop." She gave a sharp, sarcastic laugh. Okay, no need to be dramatic. I'll move it." And that time she did, but it didn't end there. Over the following weeks, the habit continued. Reggie would come home to find her car parked exactly where it shouldn't be. If he left a note, it vanished. If he knocked on her door, she was suddenly unavailable. Then one evening, after an exhausting day at school, Reggie pulled in to find not just her car, but a sleek black BMW in his driveway. Definitely not his. That was the final straw. He parked out on the street, pulled out his phone, and snapped a picture. Then he walked over and knocked, louder this time. She eventually answered, moving with zero urgency, her face a mix of boredom and slight irritation. "Reggie," she said, dragging out his name like he was interrupting something. "Who owns that car?" he asked, pointing to the driveway. "Oh, my friends," she said airily. "We're just having a small get-together, and well, you weren't home. Thought it wouldn't be a big deal." "It is a big deal," Reggie said, clearly reaching his limit. "This isn't some public lot, Blythe. It's where I live." She crossed her arms, tilting her head with exaggerated disbelief. "Well, if you'd just said something earlier, I would have moved it." Reggie exhaled slowly, jaw tight. "I'm saying something now. Move the car." She rolled her eyes again, but eventually went inside to make a call. Reggie waited. 10 minutes. 15. At the 20-minute mark, he'd had enough. He returned to his house, sat on the couch, and pulled up the number for a nearby tow company. And this was only the beginning. Reggie wasn't someone who looked for trouble. He lived a quiet life kept to himself, and always gave people the benefit of the doubt, but Blythe Vanderholt had officially gone too far the following morning. He left early for work, but not before contacting the HOA. He didn't hold out much hope. HOA were infamous for siding with whoever had the most clout, and Blythe was basically a queen on the board still. He figured it couldn't hurt to try. The reply was just what he expected, sir. Unless your property has been physically damaged, we typically don't intervene in neighbor conflicts. An interested voice on the phone told him, have you attempted to speak with her directly? Reggie sighed. I've done nothing but try that. Well, we can issue a courtesy email, but that's all we can offer. A courtesy email, yeah. That'd definitely show her, but Reggie didn't see the point in arguing. He thanked her and ended the call. If the HOA wasn't going to step in, he'd deal with it himself. He left one final message on Blythe's windshield that morning: big, clear letters, do not park here again. But when he returned that evening, the note had vanished. Her silver Lexus RX was not only back in his driveway, but crookedly parked like she didn't even care anymore. Reggie pulled to the curb, staring in disbelief. She wasn't even trying to hide it. Burning with frustration, he stomped up to her door and knocked firmly. A full minute passed before she answered, wine glass in hand, looking like she'd just been enjoying a peaceful night. Reggie, she said, stretching out his name like he was interrupting her evening. I need you to move your vehicle. She took a deliberate sip of wine before speaking. Oh, right about that. I was going to text you, but I figured it wouldn't matter since you always park on the street. Anyway, Reggie's hands clenched at his sides. He held on to his composure. I do mind, this is my driveway. Blythe, she chuckled sharply, shaking her head like he was making a scene. Reggie, come on, you're seriously this upset over a parking spot? He stepped forward slightly. No, I'm upset because I've told you again and again to stop, and you keep ignoring me. Blythe gave an exaggerated eye roll, swirling her wine glass slowly. Fine, I'll move it, she muttered. Reggie let out a long breath, forcing himself to drop it. He turned back toward his home, but then Blythe mumbled something low. He couldn't make out every word, but her tone was enough. He spun around. What did you just say? Her expression turned innocent. Nothing. No, you said something. Blythe gave a smug little grin. I just don't see why some people get so worked up over trivial things. And there it was, that fake, sweet superiority, that smug attitude made his blood simmer. Reggie didn't respond. He simply walked away, pulled out his phone, and saved the local tow company's number later. While grading papers on the couch, he kept replaying the exchange in his head. The condescension, the arrogance, the blatant disrespect. She wasn't going to change, and Reggie was officially done being polite. Blythe had no clue what he had planned, so the next time she left her Lexus in his driveway, Reggie skipped the door knock. He skipped the note. He went straight to towing. It was a Friday evening. He'd just gotten home after a grueling week, and there it was, her SUV sitting smugly in his driveway like it belonged there. Suddenly, he wasn't tired anymore. Reggie parked down the street, picked up his phone, and made the call without hesitation. I need a car towed now. Less than 20 minutes later, a tow truck arrived, almost too perfect to be real. The driver stepped out, scanned the scene, and gave a curt nod. She parked on your property? Yep, Reggie said firmly. Got proof it's yours? Reggie pulled out a copy of his deed. He had it ready, just in case. Good enough. The driver replied, let's get her hooked. Within minutes, the Lexus was off the pavement, its wheels secured tightly. Reggie stood with his arms crossed, watching with quiet satisfaction as the vehicle was hauled away, turning the corner and vanishing from sight. He didn't know how she'd react. Would she come banging on his door, call the police, act clueless about the situation? He didn't have to wonder for long. About an hour later, just as Reggie was getting comfortable for the evening, bam, 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 his front door shook violently from Blythe's furious pounding. Reggie didn't jump up right away. He stood slowly, stretched his arms, and let her wait. When he finally opened the door, there she was, flops on her feet, silk pajama pants swishing with every breath she took, and rage etched into her face. Her phone was gripped tightly in her hand, and her neatly styled blonde bob looked slightly tousled. "Where's my car?" she snapped. Reggie tilted his head. "Oh, you mean the one illegally left in my driveway?" Her nostrils flared. "Don't play dumb with me, Reggie. Where is my car?" He offered a relaxed shrug. "Towed." She froze, her jaw dropping in stunned disbelief. "You did what?" "You heard me," Reggie replied. "You kept ignoring my requests to stop, so I had it towed. Simple solution." Blythe let out a high-pitched, almost manic laugh. "Oh, you are going to regret this. Do you know who I am? I'm on the HOA board. I have influence, Reggie." Reggie blinked slowly. "Good for you. Your car's at Sunshine towing on Orange Blossom Trail. Sleep well." And just like that, he closed the door, but Blythe wasn't finished. She remained outside his home for a full 10 minutes, shouting, threatening, ranting, alternating between rage and veiled warnings. She even called the police. But when the officers arrived, they barely entertained her complaint. "You had her car removed from your own property." One officer asked Reggie. "Yep," he replied, handing over the deed to his home. The officer looked it over, then turned to Blythe. "Ma'am, he's completely within his rights. If you want your car back, you'll have to pay the impound fee." The way Blythe's face flushed crimson, Reggie almost wished he'd taken a picture. But he had a feeling this wasn't the end of it, and he was absolutely right. Reggie assumed that having her car towed would finally get the message across. It didn't. If anything, Blythe escalated. It began with petty jabs, more irritating than harmful. The first was a note taped to his front door in bright red marker, as if she thought that somehow gave it legal weight. "This is a community. We should all try to be more mindful of the people around us." Reggie tossed the note directly into the trash. Then the HOA complaints started rolling in a letter, showed up in his mailbox a few days later, accusing his front porch plants of violating the neighborhood's aesthetic guidelines. Reggie actually laughed. The same potted ferns he'd had for 2 years were now a sudden issue. Then came another notice saying he left his trash bins out too long, and another one. His mailbox paint was looking dull by the 4th complaint. Reggie wasn't even upset. He had to admit she was going all in, but what really crossed the line was her calling security on him one evening. While Reggie was out watering his yard, a white SUV marked with security pulled up lights, blinking. A tall officer in his 50s stepped out, adjusting his belt like he was there for something serious. "Do you live here, sir?" he asked. Reggie raised an eyebrow. "Yeah." Why, the man cleared his throat. "We got a report of a suspicious behavior." Reggie exhaled slowly. There it was again. That word. He turned, and just as he thought, there stood Blythe Vanderholt on her porch, arms folded, acting like she had no clue. Reggie gave the officer a dry stare. "So now watering my grass is considered suspicious?" The man looked a little embarrassed. "Well, sir, don't bother," Reggie interrupted. "I know exactly who called. Tell her to find a new pastime." The officer gave a nod, sighed, and returned to his SUV. And Blythe, she had that smug little smile like she'd scored a win. Reggie wasn't going to let it slide. He marched right up to her steps. "Blythe." She looked up, playing dumb. "Oh, everything all right, Reggie? I noticed security stopped by." "Hope it's nothing major." He crossed his arms. "You know damn well why they showed up." Blythe gasped. "Reggie, no need to be hostile. I was just concerned. It's important to look out for our community, isn't it?" He held her gaze. She wanted him to snap, lose his cool, give her something she could use. So instead, he did the last thing she expected. He smiled, calm, composed, even amused. "I'm done playing this game." Blythe, his voice was even and clear. "I gave you more chances than you ever earned, and you still keep pushing. Then let's see what happens when I push back." For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes, and rightfully so. Because the next time she used his driveway without permission, Reggie wasn't just calling a tow truck. He planned to make a statement, and Blythe had no idea what was heading her way. He didn't have to wait long. Exactly 1 week later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, Reggie turned into his street, humming after a solid workout at the gym. And there it was again. Blythe's silver Lexus RX parked smack in the center of his driveway. Even worse, it blocked access to his garage. It was blatant. disrespectful, and this time his whole family was coming over for a barbecue. Reggie sat in his car for a beat, staring at the scene. Then he shifted into park, got out, and calmly made the call. "Yeah, this is Reggie Carter," he said evenly. "I need a vehicle removed. Same address as before." The dispatcher laughed lightly. "Let me guess. Same SUV. That's the one. We'll have a truck there in 15. Reggie grinned. This time Blythe was about to learn a real lesson. He popped his trunk, grabbed a few folding chairs, and made himself comfortable on his porch, arms folded, waiting. Not long after, the tow truck rumbled up the street, quick and professional. These guys meant business. The driver hopped out, tightening his gloves. "We doing this again?" "Seems so," Reggie said, pointing toward the Lexus. The driver smirked and shook his head. "Some folks just don't get it." Without missing a beat, he backed up the rig and hooked the SUV like it was routine. That's when Blythe came charging out of her house, shrieking as if she were witnessing a burglary. "Stop! What are you doing?" Reggie leaned back in his chair, sipping water like he had nothing but time. The tow driver didn't even glance at her. He was already securing the wheels. Blythe stormed up to Reggie, fuming. "You called them again." He raised an eyebrow. "You parked there again, didn't you?" Her fists clenched at her sides. "I had guests. There was no room on the street." Reggie shrugged. "That's not my concern." She growled in frustration. "You're being ridiculous, Reggie. I told you I was going to move it." He exhaled, completely at ease. "See, that's the thing, Blythe. You've said that before, and yet here we are," Reggie replied. Her face flushed so red it looked almost medically alarming. "You have no idea what you're doing," she hissed. "I have influence. I can make your life very difficult." Reggie let out a genuine laugh. "Oh, Blythe," he said, shaking his head. "You're the one who doesn't seem to realize what's happening." He pointed toward the tow truck. "Your car, it's already on its way out." She spun around, and sure enough, her Lexus was halfway down the block. A high, pitched scream tore from her throat. "You'll regret this," she shouted. Reggie rose to his feet, brushing off his jeans. "No, Blythe," he said calmly. "You will." She stood there fuming as he turned and went inside, just as his relatives began to arrive. As they embraced him at the doorway, laughing and chatting, Blythe lingered on her porch alone. But she wasn't finished, and Reggie knew it. That second towing should have ended things, but Blythe wasn't one to accept defeat quietly. This time, she wanted revenge, and an audience. By Monday, Reggie had been cast as the neighborhood villain, or at least, that's the story Blythe tried to spin. The HOA board and her inner circle sent out an email to all residents, vaguely referencing a recent escalation of community tensions that could have been handled with better communication. It was worded to sound neutral, but was clearly aimed at Reggie. Then the flyers showed up. Yes, actual flyers, printed, laminated, and taped to every single mailbox on the block. Is this who we are as a community? Do we resort to towing instead of talking? Reggie pulled the one off his mailbox and shook his head. All of this over a parking space. But the best part, no one was buying her story. Blythe had finally gone too far. The very next morning, Reggie's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages poured in from neighbors, fellow teachers, even HOA members who weren't under Blythe's thumb. "Dude, saw that flyer. What's her deal? She's the worst. Tried to fine me $200 last year over a wind chime. If she parks in your driveway again, I'll help cover the towing bill." Reggie couldn't help but laugh at that last message. The best part, he didn't even need to defend himself. Everyone had witnessed her behavior for years, the petty complaints, the unnecessary fines, the constant need for control. Now that she was making a spectacle of herself, people were finally turning against her. Then came the HOA meeting. Usually, Reggie didn't bother attending, but this time he made sure to be there front row. He walked in with arms folded, sitting directly across from Blythe. She wouldn't even glance his way. The meeting opened with the usual routine budget reports, landscaping notes, a reminder about properly storing garbage bins. Then a board member cleared his throat. "We need to discuss a recent complaint about improper use of private property." Reggie leaned back, ready. Blythe straightened in her chair, poised, prepared to paint herself as the victim. But the board member continued, "The complaint concerns Blythe Vanderholt." Reggie let a smile spread across his face. Blythe's head whipped toward the board. "Excuse me." A few people on the panel shifted awkwardly. One of them, an older woman, sighed. "Blythe, we've received multiple reports about you harassing neighbors and misusing HOA authority for personal reasons." Blythe's mouth dropped open. "That's absurd. I'm the one being harassed." But the board member read on. "We've reviewed several incidents, including excessive calls to security, unauthorized HOA messages, and acts of retaliation against residents." Blythe looked back at the group, eyes wide. "You're siding with him." The older woman shook her head. "We're siding with the neighborhood." Blythe opened her mouth again but couldn't find a single word. She looked around the room, searching for support, but saw none. Her grip on control had slipped, and for the first time she realized it. Still, Reggie wasn't finished watching her unravel. Her dominance was fading fast, and she knew it. For years, she'd reigned over the subdivision like some self-declared monarch, twisting HOA rules to suit her agenda. But now, her power was slipping away, and she was scrambling to reclaim it. That's when she made her biggest mistake. 2 days after the meeting, Reggie arrived home to find something odd. His trash cans were missing, not knocked over, not pushed aside, completely gone. He stepped out of his vehicle, scanning the block, and then he spotted them tucked behind Blythe's house. Stacked neatly as if she'd deliberately placed them there, Reggie couldn't help but laugh out loud. This woman had gone from sending emails and posting flyers to calling security and filing HOA complaints. And now she was stealing trash cans. It was sad, honestly, but Reggie wasn't about to ignore it. He grabbed his phone, snapped a few sharp photos for proof, and strolled over to her front door. Knock, knock. No response. He knocked again, louder this time. After a long moment, the door creaked open. There she was. Blythe looked different. No smug grin, no phony pleasantries, just exhausted, like she already knew the game was up. Reggie raised his phone. "Care to explain why my trash cans are behind your house?" She folded her arms. "I have no idea what you're talking about." He chuckled quietly. "Come on, Blythe. I've got pictures. Let's not make this harder." She didn't reply, just stared back at him. "You've lost." Reggie said plainly, "You can't find me. You can't call in security. The HOA won't back you anymore. And now you're swiping garbage bins like some unhinged neighbor." Her eyes flickered, sharp and angry, but she kept her mouth shut. Reggie stepped forward, calm, composed. "You've spent all this time trying to make my life miserable," he said, nodding toward her dim, silent house, "but now, looks like you're the one who's actually unhappy." Blythe's jaw clenched, her lips pressed tightly together. Then, without saying a word, she closed the door. Reggie grinned. Honestly, that was the most reasonable move she'd made in months. But one final step remained. The next day, Reggie submitted a formal complaint to the HOA, this time targeting Blythe. He didn't need to embellish anything. The evidence spoke for itself. Multiple harassment reports, bogus security calls, unauthorized HOA messages, and now blatant theft. By week's end, the board made their decision. Blythe Vanderholt was officially removed from her position on the HOA. Her grip on the neighborhood was gone, her authority stripped away, and best of all, she never left her car in Reggie's driveway again. Because sometimes, people only understand consequences when they lose everything. Blythe never approached Reggie again after that. Not even once. No dirty looks, no smug smiles, no passive, aggressive jabs about his porch ferns or where he kept his bins. She avoided him entirely. And truthfully, this was the best possible result Reggie could have hoped for after months of frustration. He could finally drive into his own driveway without stress, no cars blocking his space, no passive notes stuck to his door, no absurd HOA citations, just quiet. But the neighborhood wasn't done. Gossiping Blythe's downfall had become something of a suburban myth. The woman who once ruled the HOA like a dictator had been dethroned in spectacular fashion. Residents who had stayed silent before suddenly found their courage. She charged me $75 once because my bike was on the porch. She called security on my nephew just because he wore a hoodie. I've lived here a decade, and not once have I seen her actually help anyone. Reggie came to understand something. She had been stirring up problems long before targeting him. He had simply been the first to stand his ground, and once he did, the rest of the neighborhood followed. But karma hadn't finished with Blythe. Just a few months later, a for sale sign appeared in her front yard. She was leaving. Some claimed it was out of humiliation. Others murmured that she had made too many enemies to stay. Reggie didn't care about the reason. When the moving vans finally drove off, he walked out onto his porch, inhaled deeply, and let the moment settle in. Battle was done, and he had come out on top. The takeaway: some folks believe they can bully others endlessly, that they can act selfishly, manipulate, and mistreat people, because no one has ever stopped them. But eventually they cross the wrong person, and when that person rises up, the world watches that crumble. If you liked this story, don't forget to hit subscribe. There's always more where this came from.